This is a special report, Chasing the High, the heroin epidemic.
Just keep your head back for a minute, okay?
Heroin.
I thought maybe that was like a way to deal with the pain.
Affecting everyone.
This type of activity is going on in broad daylight and in plain view.
Tying up police and paramedics.
You can't arrest your way out of it.
Overwhelming emergency rooms.
It's a strain on hospital resources, it's a strain on staff.
Even touching those lives, just getting started.
When they're born, they can start to have a number of side effects, including seizures.
Tonight, from News 5, the far reach of the heroin epidemic and what can be done to save people from themselves.
Tonight we're taking an in-depth look at the chilling impact of the heroin epidemic in our News 5 special report, Chasing the High. Thanks for being here. I'm Rob Powers.
And I'm Danita Harris. A lot of you might be thinking heroin doesn't have anything to do with me. Well, tonight we're here to show you this epidemic hits closer to home than you realize. Just yesterday, city and county leaders revealed that every 13 hours last year, someone in Cuyahoga County died from an opioid overdose. That's more than 600 people for the year.
And this year we're on track to top that with a projected 850 people expected to lose their lives to addiction in 2017. Again, that is just in Cuyahoga County. This is a public health crisis so severe, the county is now teaming up with hospitals and coroners for a new task force to take on this deadly epidemic. No one ever thinks that they might wind up putting a needle in their arm just to get high, but the path to heroin often has the same starting line: prescription painkillers, and that's why prescribing guidelines have changed here in Ohio.
Even knowing that, it is hard to understand how someone could take that last leap toward heroin. We spoke with several addicts to explain the allure. Here's News 5 anchor Lee Jordan.
Until you've done it, you don't understand that you do it again. You're going to do it again.
Brianna Shibley is a heroin addict. She started using when she was just 18 and has been through repeated relapses. John flatlined in the back of a van after overdosing.
They say you hit your bottoms, but I kept digging.
They're just two examples of an epidemic affecting people of all races, all classes, all ages across the nation. Even mothers like Angela Dowd are hooked.
Sticking that needle in my arm, and it would give me, an hour high.
For Angela, losing custody of her 3-year-old son wasn't enough to get her clean. Caitlin Doherty can relate.
Being pregnant, I felt like a piece of crap, but I just didn't know how to stop.
Caitlin was addicted to heroin while she was pregnant. All these addicts, now in recovery, say nothing else compares.
Felt so relaxed, and the feeling of the euphoria, and it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before.
Heroin is unlike any other experience. It boosts the dopamine levels in your brain. Dopamine controls the brain's pleasure center. It's behind our most sinful behaviors involving lust, sex, addiction. Users know they should quit. They have to quit, and they can't.
You really only see one way out, and that's just to die. And I prayed to die every day, and I thought that would be better for my kids.
But your body can build a tolerance to that extra dopamine. Addicts need more and more to feel high. So they use again and again. But some, somehow, find hope.
I tried to kill myself several times and it didn't work. And I was like, okay, if I have to be here, apparently God's not letting me leave. I'm still here. If I have to be here and this is not, I'm not dying, then this can't be like this anymore.
Brianna was able to let heroin go. Now she devotes her life to helping others like her, trapped in an endless cycle of addiction. Caitlin was able to kick her habit before her baby was born.
She was a month early, but healthy as can be. Thank God. Thank God.
She was the first person to take advantage of a program that lets addicts walk into a police station and ask for help. Angela hadn't seen her son for a year when we spoke. But after her mother found her unconscious in a bedroom with a burning cigarette in her hand,
it's like she's dead. She's dead.
She was revived with Narcan and is working to stay clean. At the time of our interview last year, she'd made it 9 months. So no matter how hard it is,
From the morning to night, even trying to sleep, it's 24/7.
These survivors of the heroin epidemic still have hope for those lost in the throes of addiction.
Please just get help, because life is so much better on the other side, I promise.
Lee Jordan, News 5.
And now that you understand the appeal of the heroin high, it might be easier to see how some addicts can sink so low as to use it right out in the open, like in this video inside a Fairview Park McDonald's. A woman appears to snort something in the booth. The man takes it to the bathroom, but when he comes back, something is wrong. He's overdosing. The woman gives him Narcan, the overdose antidote, right there at the table. And how about this? Public bathrooms. That's right, public bathrooms. Very popular. It's a very popular place for addicts to get high, and we're all dealing with the consequences. Police were called to this bathroom in Kent when a gas station employee reported a suspicious man. They found smeared blood and heroin on the baby changing table. Police say this is happening in public bathrooms across Northeast Ohio.
So, do you need help? Do you know someone who does? Tonight, we'd like to offer a lifeline. News 5's John Kosick live for us from Playhouse Square to explain. John?
Yeah, relapse is part of recovery. That's something I heard the father of an overdose victim say yesterday that he wishes he knew 2 years ago. There's a lot of information out there that those dealing with addiction and their families need to know, and the faces behind me, they represent the first step. They are the healthcare professionals here right now to answer your calls at 1-866-459-2547. Do you need help for yourself or someone else? Give them a call, and they can get you started right now on that path to recovery. They will be here through 11:30 tonight. Reporting live in Cleveland, John Kosick, News 5.
John, thank you. Our News 5 special report, Chasing the High, just getting started.
When an addict buys heroin, they're not always getting just heroin.
It's not heroin. It's cut with a deadly killer. It floors me, but it's out there.
Most drug dealers aren't known for quality assurance. They stretch their supply by cutting it with something else, often with deadly results.
It's not just other drugs they're using either. Heroin can be cut with anything from flour to laxatives. What kinds of fillers can taint that supply? Next.
Welcome back to our News 5 special report, Chasing the High, the heroin epidemic. We're taking an in-depth look at the heroin crisis and its far-reaching impact on our communities.
Many overdose deaths we see here at home can be attributed to dealers tainting their own supply. They mix heroin with other drugs so they'll have more to sell, but some of those other drugs are far too powerful and they are costing us lives.
News 5 was the first to tell you when so-called elephant heroin came to Akron last year. Here's Bob Jones' exclusive report.
In this size city, people are dying every single day of heroin overdoses because it's not heroin. It's cut with a deadly killer.
Akron Police Chief James Nice suspects white powdery carfentanil has made its way to Akron from China.
It floors me, but it's out there.
He calls the drug brand new to the area. It's now being mixed with heroin and sold with deadly results.
We're concerned. We're extremely concerned.
The Akron Zoo doesn't carry the drug, but other zoos use it in liquid form as a sedative for large animals like grizzly bears, zebras, or 6,000-pound elephants.
It's an incredibly dangerous drug.
Dr. Kim Cook says it's so dangerous and powerful, vets who use it have to take extreme precautions.
We're concerned that even a drop could get in an eye, so we wear eye protection, we wear long sleeves, we wear gloves.
Police say testing revealed carfentanil was present in 2 recent deadly overdoses, one on Copley Road and another in New Franklin. And with more than 90 other overdoses in just 10 days, it's possible the drug, used as an anesthetic for zoo animals, will be linked to the deaths of more people.
People will overdose from fentanyl being mixed in with heroin. Take something 100 times more powerful than that being mixed in. It's extremely dangerous.
Chief Nice tells me 2 people have been arrested in connection with the rash of overdoses, but multiple officers are still hunting for the main source or sources and a stash of carfentanil. In the meantime, he hopes heroin users will listen to his warning.
People are going to die that are using this.
In Akron, Bob Jones, News Channel 5.
Now, that's not the only dangerously potent drug being cut into the heroin supply. Only News 5 told you about pink heroin when it made a reappearance here in Northeast Ohio last year. It gets its name from the way fentanyl is processed before it's cut into the heroin. It changes color. Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. That means when first responders try to save an addict from an overdose, it takes several doses of Narcan to bring them back from the brink of death.
And it's not always other drugs that dealers are mixing in to stretch their supply. Sometimes addicts are snorting products that might be sitting right in your pantry. Dealers are getting creative, cutting the drug with anything from flour, baking soda, and believe it or not, even pancake mix. Even something like baby laxatives can extend their supply. Tonight, a closer look at the devastating consequences of this epidemic. A teenage boy found dead in a motel after doing heroin with his mother. He is one tragic example of how addiction is impacting our children.
Even poor young souls who don't have a choice are finding themselves hooked. We'll show you how some people are specially trained to help newborn babies, the children of addicted mothers, get through withdrawal. Welcome back to News 5 Special Report, Chasing the High, an in-depth look at the heroin epidemic. At 16 years old, Andrew Fry's life came to an abrupt end in the bathroom of a Super 8 motel in Summit County. He'd been using heroin with his mother and overdosed. Andrew's story is a heartbreaking example of how a generation of children is being impacted by the heroin epidemic.
And it wasn't just Andrew's mother involved in his deadly habit. His grandmother provided the drugs that took his life.
News 5.
Family members watched in tears as Heather Fry told the courtroom that she wished she could have avoided her son's death.
I made a really stupid decision, and I'm probably going to have to pay for it the rest of my life.
Police say she caused that death by helping to provide her son with the heroin and fentanyl that likely killed him. And police say the boy's grandmother, Brenda Fry, also had a hand.
It's my grandson that passed away. I would like to go to his funeral.
Jessica Irons, also arraigned today, and Donald Callahan were also charged in this case. According to court documents, all of the suspects have drug charges on their records.
One controlled substance, to wit, heroin.
Summit County Sheriff Steve Berry said he used to worry about domestic violence carrying from generation to generation. Now he sees a new evil.
We're seeing it, generational cycles of drug abuse and drug usage. And it's sad. We have a senseless death of a 16-year-old.
The medical examiner couldn't say how long Andrew had been using heroin.
There was definitely recent needle punctures,
leaving Chief Berry to wonder if Andrew ever had a chance.
And if you don't have that base of a good family foundation, I think you're already starting behind the 8 ball, for lack of a better term.
Megan Hickey, News 5.
Andrew's mother and grandmother both pleaded guilty to the charges against them and were sentenced to 9 years in prison.
There are resources for young people like Andrew, not even old enough to vote, who find themselves addicted to heroin.
I've heard people as young as 13, using a needle.
Jeff Knight is a recovering heroin addict himself. He says kids are using opioid pain pills at a younger age and therefore turning to heroin at a younger age. He goes to middle schools and high schools to make sure teens know anybody can become a junkie.
They don't think it's going to happen to them, and then they're dead. Talk about it. It's real. It's out there. People are dying every day.
Knight says it's important not only for these young students, but also for their school administrators to recognize heroin addiction can happen anywhere. Yes, even in their school.
Teens who turn to the needle aren't the only young victims of the epidemic. A lot of children are traumatized and endangered by their addicted parents. Take a look at this chilling picture. It made international headlines after police found a man high on heroin behind the wheel with a 4-year-old in the back seat. The child's mother was overdosing and her high friend was driving her to the hospital. She was revived with Narcan and they were both arrested. The boy was put into protective services. Another child was in the backseat of a car in Cincinnati when her parents overdosed. She was the one who called 911.
But I'm going to stay on the phone with you till they get there, okay?
Okay, I'm scared.
I know you're scared, but you'll be okay. It'll be all right.
That car still in drive when the girl's mother passed out behind the wheel. She put it in park herself. Her parents were revived with Narcan. The girl was sent to her grandparents. Heroin and its devastating consequences have even fought their way into the most innocent lives.
Inside the NICU at Metro Health, newborn babies are suffering through the traumatic symptoms of withdrawal. News 5's James Girardi shows us.
The cute coo of a newborn inside a hospital. Really, nothing new. What is, though, is the scourge of babies born to mothers addicted to heroin.
When they're born, they can start to have a number of side effects, including seizures.
In 2 years, babies born in Cuyahoga County exposed to drugs or alcohol while in the womb went from 330 to nearly 450. These babies are born more irritable. They have difficulty feeding and gaining weight. Sleeping is a struggle for them, and seizures can be common. All side effects of withdrawals from the drug they grew dependent to inside the womb.
It absolutely is heartbreaking, and we've seen, this is an epidemic in this country and in Ohio.
You'll see tremors, irritability, high-pitched cry, almost like a scream. Come here.
For 11 years, Metro Health nurse Mary Slusher has been the hands that hold these NICU newborns. She works directly with the mothers going through addiction and recovery and their babies, like little Daniel, 2 months old, still experiencing methadone withdrawals, his mom, a recovering user.
I would see this and then I would get angry. And then I decided that that's not who I am, and as a nurse, you can't bring in your own judgments.
There is one remedy, though, that even the strongest medicine can't provide.
Give me your Buster Brown.
Metro Health was the first Cleveland hospital to offer an infant comforter program. Volunteer Chris Baumhauer's been cuddling, coddling, and comforting newborns for years.
I came in a little concerned that what I did for them might not work, might not be effective.
Initially fearful her touch would provide only momentary relief to their suffering, she realized even that is enough.
Most often, the baby being held gets comfort within the first few minutes.
Doctors know there are necessities to help these newborns through their withdrawals. Morphine to help control the craving, a quiet environment to keep them calm, and perhaps most importantly, a comforting whisper, the vibration of a beating heart, and the touch of a human hand.
It's so big.
We all got it. We all need it. The love we all feel from the moment we enter this world. Some of us, though, need it just a little more than others.
It's hard for little boys. I can't think of anything more important or helpful than comforting a child who is ill.
For News 5 in Cleveland, I'm James Girardi.
So right now you might be thinking, hey, I don't use heroin. I don't know anybody who does.
But no matter how insulated you think you are, this epidemic affects all of us. Next, you'll see how the heroin problem is a strain on the life-saving resources we all rely on to keep us and our families safe.
And there is real hope in all this. We'll show you a few of the promising strategies aimed at beating this epidemic once and for all.
Welcome back to News 5 Special Report, Chasing the High, an in-depth look at the heroin epidemic. We've shown you the heartbreaking impact that the heroin epidemic has on everyone. If you don't know someone who is using, you're still feeling the effects.
The epidemic's overwhelming police, fire, and health departments, sometimes keeping those professionals from your emergency calls. News 5's Tara Molina learned heroin is controlling just about everything.
Check out this surveillance video from one of Life Care Ambulance's most recent calls. Paramedics used Narcan, heroin's antidote, once. It didn't appear to work. A second time, didn't appear to work. Then the man woke up. Both paramedics had to work to restrain him. Officials told me cases like this, overdoses, just keep increasing. It's affecting our police and sheriff's departments, from overdoses to crime increase and arrests. The heroin epidemic is tying up public safety.
It's not too much other things that we have the time to spend on. We are chasing heroin dealers every day.
If we go to an overdose call, we usually send 2 officers. You have 3 paramedics in an ambulance. Then we have to follow up with that. And the more calls that we go to, that's where we're not available to help other people.
That's what Lieutenant Shepard said people at home may not realize. This drug epidemic is more than a strain for law enforcement. It's a drain on society. But they're doing everything they can to change that.
The cost reaches everybody through medical bills, through the cost of prosecuting. We had to buy the Narcan. That Narcan came out of the taxpayers' budget and a drug task force budget. So that's cost in society in general.
Tara Molina, News 5.
Okay, so what can we do? We've talked about using Narcan to reverse an overdose, but that's a Band-Aid. That's not a cure. One solution being tested right now is a device that looks like a hearing aid. The physical pain of withdrawal stops a lot of addicts from seeking help. So this device sends impulses to the brain that block pain signals during withdrawal.
Another tool in the fight against heroin is a different kind of injection. One shot of Vivitrol can stop a person from feeling the effects of heroin for a month. It's an opiate blocker, taking away the incentive to use. Doctors caution an addict will still need treatment to kick the habit.
There's also what we're calling the Switzerland method after a record high number of overdose deaths in that country. The government rolled out a supervised heroin use program. Within 10 years, overdose deaths dropped 50%, and most addicts were using government-sanctioned heroin rather than street drugs. Bottom line, like it or not, the heroin epidemic impacts all of us, and it's dramatically shaping the next generation.
You see the number scrolling across the bottom of your screen. That's the number you can call for help. Our phone bank will be open until 11:30.
Thanks for joining us tonight for our News 5 special report, Chasing the High. Have a good night.